I had a podcast host ask me a question, and I was just thinking about it and wanted to share. So she asked me, what is a piece of advice that you would give to midlife women who are struggling with their health and wellness, trying to follow advice that they're seeing out there and just getting really frustrated and not seeing results? In fact, maybe backsliding. And so what I said was, and this woman was a health coach, that it's really helpful to find guidance and accountability when you're struggling with especially health and wellness. I have fellow practitioners, and we live life and we're humans, so we have a lot of the same kinds of challenges, and we say things like, thank goodness we have the tools to navigate through this, right? What do people do if they don't have these tools and this awareness? And so I would say that something that's really helpful is to find somebody who has walked the walk, success leaves clues, and get some support and guidance. And of course, a coach is one of those people that you can look towards. Also, you can find an accountability buddy to be able to help you navigate through whatever your goals are so that you can get those goals reached more quickly. There's a study out there that says that with accountability, you're able to get to your goals maybe 90% higher chances. And so that is a huge significant win if you can do that, right? And also, I think it's really cool to think about your tendencies. It's this great study done by Gretchen Rubin, and she came up with these 4 tendencies of how people are motivated. And so understanding that it's contextual and a lot of us have different combinations of these. It's not all clean cut, but there's the upholder, the person who kind of says they're going to do it and it's done, they're going to just go follow through. And then there's the other person who's more of a rebel, so you have to kind of navigate sort of a brain gymnastics to see how you can get the person motivated to follow through if they're rebels, because they tend to want to do the opposite. And then there's the questioner. We all know those people who are full of questions because they need to know the what, the how, and the why before they're able to take action. So those are the questioners. And then there are the obligers, which is a large group. And the obligers are the people who will follow through if they know somebody is counting on them. And so that's where, accountability is really helpful, and having a coach. Like for me, I can be an upholder depending on what's going on, but in terms of like self care, I'm an obliger, I'm a caregiver. So the idea of taking care of myself, I don't always follow through if left to my own devices. But if I say I'm going to do something and, somebody else is understanding that this is going to happen and will follow up with me, like i.e. a coach or a friend, a fellow practitioner, then I'll follow through. I mean, it's anything that I've done that's been significant has been through accountability, community, and through coaching. And so my answer was finding an accountability buddy, or finding somebody that you really trust that knows something about what you're struggling with. And for me, I also like looking at labs because everybody is unique. We talk a lot in the functional health space about how bioindividuality, meaning that everybody's body responds differently. And the other thing that's really interesting and not really mentioned a lot is when you change things biochemically or habitually and otherwise, things change. And so sometimes the solution works and then you go to the next level, or you need to course correct. Also, a lot of times, especially in a healing journey, it's not a straight line. We wish it were, but it's actually a zigzag up and down. Sometimes you will fall back. Sometimes you will fall off the wagon. And that's a normal part of the journey. But sometimes without encouragement or awareness, that's where people fall off entirely and quit and feel like there's no hope. And so having somebody to cheer you on, to say that's okay, or that's part of the process, or hey, what was the thing that didn't work out? How do we figure it out together? Like, how do we get through that block or that barrier that you came upon, and let's make it work. And something else that's really amazing is that when you're able to work with accountability or with a coach, then you're able to also understand that sometimes progress doesn't feel good. It's uncomfortable because it's not what you're used to. And so you might feel like this doesn't feel right, or this is really uncomfortable, but really doing something different in you is often very uncomfortable. So there could be adjustments. Sometimes healing feels like backward sliding, like there's maybe a detox response. So it's good to know what to do when that happens, instead of feeling like, oh, I can't handle this, I'm going to quit. So, anyways, I hope this is really helpful. And it's another reason why I like to use labs, because you're able to actually really understand what's going on with your body chemistry and your emotions when you're using a hair tissue and mineral analysis. And also, when you retest, a lot of times you see that progress. And when you see progress happen, it gives you that motivation to continue on. So, definitely, I think that especially when you're dealing with health issues and you've, done all the things, I actually think something harmful to do is to just listen to random advice and run with it, because it could be the wrong thing for you. It could be something that's more advanced, could just be bad advice. It could be an overgeneralized off comment that an expert's throwing out there, and then you think it's for you, it doesn't work, and then you think you failed. So yeah, one of the worst things you could do is just to, take some general advice on social media or through an influencer or whatever, and then feel like that's going to work for you, because not everything works for everybody. And so you can be, the other thing is you're N of one experiment, meaning that you try it and then see how you feel. And if it doesn't work for you, then do something else. And again, it helps to have somebody who's a practitioner, coach, or somebody who's walked through what you're dealing with, be able to say, actually, I went through that too, and this is what helped. Or actually, I went through that too, and that was just part of the process. Keep going, you're on the right track. In fact, like an example is if you have food sensitivities and you take the food out and you have really crazy symptoms, like, cravings, or you end up having just whatever the big symptom is, it means you're going in the right direction, because food sensitivities were actually a big part of the problem. A lot of it is like crazy withdrawal symptoms and cravings. I usually say, yay, this means that we're on the right track, so let's keep going, because this is what's going to help you reach that healing point that you're looking for. So anyways, I hope that's helpful. I'd like to know your thoughts about that. What would you give, or what would you advise somebody, or what would you think is the best step you can take if you're struggling with your health and wellness? What are some things you've done that's worked, and what are some things you've done that hasn't worked? And I'd love to hear it. And please subscribe to this channel so that we can stay in touch. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.